Okay, this is 250, week 5, part 4. Um, we're going to wrap up Oscar Wilde. This is going very, very well. Oscar Wilde, uh, a lot of people in his day wanted art to be realistic. That's what they thought it should be. And he said, no, 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 it should do its own thing. And in the next paragraph, he really kind of yells about this. He says, all bad art comes from returning to life and nature and elevating them into ideals. He says, if you're interested in copying life, and remember that nature means reality, I taught you guys that. The all bad art comes returning to life and nature and elevating them into ideals. In a different essay, or I don't remember where he said it, but Oscar Wilde also said, and this is one of my favorite ones, and you're not going to like this, but I'm going to tell it to you anyway because I think it's funny. He said, all bad poetry comes from sincerity. Like, that's a crazy thing to say. Shouldn't poetry be sincere? Because we expect poetry to, like, really be about... So, for example, if someone gets broken up with and they write a poem about how sad they are, they're sincerely sad, and their sadness is sincere. Oscar Wilde says that's all bad poetry. Because he wants poetry that's going to do crazy stuff, like talk about, he wants poetry that's going to capture something magical and something amazing and something unrealistic. So he says all bad poetry comes from being sincere. Good poetry would invent a bunch of crazy, interesting, fascinating lies. Like, for example, Dante. Dante wrote a poem about hell, and he talked about how the hell had different levels, and I think I talked about this already, but then hell has different levels, and there's a public transit system, and different sinners are in different types of hell, and they get these weird punishments. He didn't get that from the Bible. He said he got it from God, but he just made it up. He just made all that stuff up. Oscar Wilde would prefer that kind of poetry, where people make up crazy things about what the afterlife is like. Way better than reading your sincere poetry about how you got dumped. And people, but it really happened to me. And Oscar Wilde would be like, I don't care. It's not good poetry because it's not interesting. Because he thinks your sadness is realistic. If you capture your sadness well, you've made realistic art. But he says art is not supposed to be realistic. Art should be an escape from reality. All right, cool. So he says all bad art comes from returning to life and nature and elevating them into life. By the way, I have to say I kind of agree with Oscar Wilde about a lot of this. I'm not the surest way to get me not to see a movie is to write based on a true story on the poster. I don't want to watch that movie. I'm not interested in based on a true story because I'm not interested in history. I don't want to learn a history lesson from going to the movies. I want to see something crazy. Oh, a movie that had a great sense of style that I can bring up as an example? Into the Spider-Verse. Into the Spider-Verse has a fantastic sense of style, and the story is good. But the reason why I really enjoy Into the Spider-Verse is because not only does it have a great sense of style, it has different senses of style. The different Spider-Man characters each have their own different style. That's what makes that movie so fun. Is like Nicolas Cage is one of the characters is voiced by Nicolas Cage. I don't remember his name. I just remember Nicolas Cage did the voice. But one of the characters Into the Spider-Verse, he's literally in black and white. Like, that doesn't make any sense. You couldn't have a person just be in black and white like an old movie all the time. Like, his face is in black and white. That makes no... He's not just, like, wearing black and white. He is black and white because he's from a world, like, he's from a black and white comic book, which is crazy. But the point is that Into the Spider-Verse, the different spider characters have a different style, right? The girl with the robot has her own separate style, and Gwen Stacy has her own different style with her ballerina shoes that I fucking love in that movie. The point is that that's one of the things that makes that movie great is the style. There's no other movie that looks like Into the Spider-Verse. Whereas, look, I enjoyed Deadpool, but Deadpool 2 was just more. I enjoyed Guardians of the Galaxy, but Guardians of the Galaxy is more. And when you watch enough Marvel movies, they start to feel kind of similar after a while. But when you see Into the Spider-Verse, I'm like, oh shit, nothing looks like it. There's no other movie that looks like this. Or when I saw Logan, which totally different movie, and I was like, whoa, I've never seen a superhero movie look like this, because it was doing its own thing. Whereas the Marvel movies, which I enjoy, but they feel repetitive after a while. It's like I've seen this already. I mean, God, Tony Stark and Doctor Strange are like the same person. I mean, I know they're One's got technology and one's a wizard, but I mean, they're both white dudes with goatees who are rich and egotistical, and they think the whole world revolves around them. And then by the end of the movie, they have to learn it's actually more important to care about other people. I feel like I fucking saw that movie twice, but I've never seen a movie like Logan before. I've never seen a movie like Into the Spider-Verse before. And while we're on the subject, my third favorite superhero movie is from the early 90s, and it's called Batman Returns. And there's no superhero movie like that one. That movie's fucking crazy. All right, let's finish up the Oscar Wilde. All bad art comes from returning to life and nature and elevating them into ideals. Life, and he says it's okay to be realistic for a little bit. Life and nature may sometimes be used as part of art's rough material, but before they are of any real service to art, they must be translated into artistic conventions. Meaning you can base your stuff off of reality, but you better translate it. You better transform it when it goes into your art. The moment art surrenders its imaginative medium, it surrenders everything. As a method, realism is a complete failure, and the two things every artist should avoid are modernity of form and modernity of subject matter. Meaning, don't do what everybody else is doing. Don't do modern stuff. You got to go, because if you do something in the present day, people are going to expect it to be realistic. But if you set something in a faraway planet or a country that most people have never been to, you can just start making shit up, and that's better, says Oscar Wilde. Okay. To us who live in the 19th century, any century is subject for our art except our own. Right? Don't write about your own time or people will expect it to be realistic. Write about other times, other places. The only beautiful things are things that do not concern us because our world concerns us. And if you make art out of that, we're going to expect it to be realistic. But if you make about some other crazy planet we've never been to, you can make up you can say whatever you want is on Jupiter and nobody's going to contradict you. Nobody's been. It is, to have the pleasure of quoting myself, exactly because Hecuba is nothing to us, that her sorrows are so suitable a motive for tragedy. Now, you probably don't remember who Hecuba is. I would love it if anybody remembered who Hecuba is. There's no reason why you should remember that. It's too hard to remember. But he says it's precisely because Hecuba's sorrow has nothing to do with us that it's a perfect subject for tragedy, because this is a totally different person from an ancient time period in a totally different situation than we're in. That's why it's good for art. But when he says the sorrows of Hecuba do not concern us, talking about Hamlet. He's quoting Hamlet there. Hecuba was the queen who was weeping over the dead king in the speech that the actor says when Hamlet says, "Oh, do that speech that I love so much." And then after the speech is over, Hamlet says, "I can't believe that this actor got so upset about this." And I'm not getting the text out because we already did this. But Hamlet says, "I can't believe that actor got so upset about someone who's not even real. What's Hecuba to him, or he to Hecuba, that he should weep for her?" says Hamlet. And Hamlet's point is, I can't believe this actor got so upset about someone who's not even real, and I can't even get upset about the fact that my uncle killed my father. So that's Wilde is directly quoting Hamlet there. Hecuba is nothing to us. It's because Hecuba is nothing to us that her sorrows are a motive for tragedy. The only modern art, life goes faster than realism, but romanticism, which is making up crazy shit, is always in front of life. He says, life imitates art far more than art imitates life. Now, it's a famous phrase. People say, well, art imitates life, because that's what Plato and Pope believe. Art is supposed to imitate or copy life. Oscar Wilde says, no. He says, he says life imitates art more than art imitates life. That when artists do something, it persuades other people to start doing that shit in real life, which is crazy. There was a movie from the early 90s maybe called Boys in the Hood. And one of the things that happened in Boys in the Hood is that one of the characters holds a gun sideways. Now, he did that because John Singleton wanted to get the director of the movie wanted to get like a shot of the guy's face. He didn't want the trigger thing in front of the thing. So he tilted the gun like this. It's a cool way to hold a gun. It's not a very smart way to hold a gun. You're going to miss. The whole point of the thing on the top of the gun is you line it up with the thing. But in the movie, he held the gun sideways. And people thought it was so cool that real-life criminals started holding the gun sideways in real life. And by the way, there was a guy who shot up Times Square, and he didn't hit anybody because he was holding the gun sideways. And that's not a useful way to hold a gun, but it looks cool. Life was imitating art there. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up in the next video. I'm kind of I should have sped up a little bit and finished this, but we will. Okay, I'll see you in the next and last video about Oscar Wilde, although not the last video for the day.